Hey everybody, we're back once again on Roto Curve. It's today's pitching picks. Obviously, right now there's a lot of starting pitchers going right now, a lot of talented guys. We have guys like Justin Verlander, who looks like he came back from the dead so far against the Rays. Chris Archer is pitching right now, and Clayton Kershaw is slated to start tonight. But he had just been scratched. The Dodgers just announced he was scratched tonight because of his sore hip and glute. So be sure to take him out of your lineups if you had him in there. And one thing, real quick, I wanted to mention about that. On FanDuel and DraftKings and some other sites, all the Athletics hitters were priced simply because they were facing Kershaw. So all those guys would be very low priced and probably highly owned for those that saw the news. But take advantage of guys like Stephen Vogt, Josh Reddick, and some other lefty bats, maybe Billy Burns at the top of the order, because they will be very cheap today. And that's something to target whenever there's a good pitcher like Kershaw scratched. Well, getting into the pitchers we like tonight, there are three aces. Excuse me. So I wanted to talk about each one of them. The aces per se for tonight, which are guys that are priced very highly, are Tyson Ross against the Mets in Citi Field, Masahiro Tanaka at the Rangers, and Garrett Richards against the Astros. Of these three guys, the guy I like the most is Garrett Richards, but only in tournaments, and I want to talk about why. I don't really love any of these three pitchers, but the reason why Richards is my guy is really just because of the Astros. Their woes for striking out. They strike out the most in baseball, but what comes with that is they have a ton of power. They have the most isolated power in baseball. I think they have the highest slugging percentage, and they have a lot of guys that can hit the ball out of the ballpark. So for me, anytime I'm targeting the Astros, I'm only going to be doing it in tournaments simply because of the fact that when they score runs, they score in bunches. So, but I do like Richards today because he has good stuff, and he has the matchup against the Astros, who strike out a lot against right-handed and left-handed pitching, but more so against right-handed pitching. So Richards is the only ace I would use, but I would only use him in tournaments today simply because of the Astros' power against right-handed and left-handed pitching. The other two guys I just talked about are Masahiro Tanaka and Tyson Ross. I want to discuss with Ross real quick. He is unbelievably expensive on DraftKings, and I believe he's $10,800. I can't pay that price for a guy that can't seem to get through the sixth inning. He does get a lot of strikeouts. He's been using his slider very effective lately. But a guy that's priced that highly, you want to get close to 30 points out of him. And if you're not looking at just value, which is debatable for another day for baseball, you want him to be the top pitcher on the day. I don't really have faith in a guy that can't get through the sixth inning, and sometimes he struggles to give up runs. He is facing the Mets, which he has a great matchup, and I do like him on FanDuel because his price is a little bit lower there, but I don't want to take him on DraftKings. The reason why I do like him overall as a pitcher on the day is because he's in Citi Field, which is one of the best pitcher's parks in baseball. The Mets really have not been able to hit the ball well at all lately, other than a few hits from Lucas Duda and Michael Conforto. But I like Ross against the Mets because he has the ability to strike hitters out, we talked about earlier, but he's not getting through sixth inning, which is one reason why I think I like him in cash just on FanDuel, because you're only measured in innings, strikeouts, and a win, which he's likely to get because he's favored tonight. But I don't like him on DraftKings because I don't know if he's going to get that many points that warrants his cost. The other guy is Masahiro Tanaka against the Rangers. And the Rangers started off yesterday scoring 5 straight runs. They crushed the ball. But the one thing is they then went 8 1/3 without registering a hit. Now, I do like Tanaka's ability to pitch and his strikeout stuff, and I would probably have him in a tournament lineup or two. But considering the fact that he doesn't match up well with the Rangers' right-handed offense, they have some left-handed bats in that lineup that really crush the ball, and they've been hitting the ball relatively well of late, with the exception of yesterday after they allowed 14 unanswered runs in the first 3 innings. But of those three aces, I would go Tyson Ross on FanDuel, and I do like Garrett Richards in GPPs and tournaments. But some other pitchers I wanted to note today, some cheaper guys, which you may or may not need now with the Athletics bats being cheaper. But the guys I wanted to talk about are Lance McCullers, Jose Quintana, and John Lackey. Excuse me, need some water or something. Lance McCullers today against the Angels. The Angels have one of the worst lineups in baseball against right-handed pitchers, and when you look at the entire season, but they have been hitting the ball well of late. We've seen a lot of runs scored. We've seen guys like Albert Pujols hitting home runs. Eric Ibar stepped up in the middle of that order, and of course they have one of the best players, if not the best player in baseball, Mike Trout. But if Trout's hurt again, he didn't play last night, that lineup is not really very strong, and it's one reason why I like McCullers, who's an excellent young pitcher. He has great stuff. He doesn't walk a lot of guys, and he has excellent strikeout potential. Now, that being said, 2 of his last 3 starts, which both coincidentally came against the Red Sox, he only struck out 3 guys, and the other starter struck out 2. But in between that, he had a 10 strikeout game. Now, the fact is that with the Astros' organizational strategy of only using their pitchers for a few innings in the minor leagues, it hurts the younger guys when they get to the big stage. And that's one reason why McCullers rarely gets past 6 innings. So with his ability to strike guys out at times, and sometimes with the limit that he has on his innings pitch, I only like him in tournaments because you just never know what you're going to get out of him. But if the Angels do not have Trout, I would not be opposed to using him in cash game because that lineup really isn't much to be reckoned with without one of the best players in baseball. The next guy I want to discuss was Jose Quintana against the Red Sox. He's a tournament-only option for me pretty much every start against a good matchup, which the Red Sox tend to struggle with left-handed pitching. But the reason why I like him is because he's one of these guys that has the ability to throw a gem at just about any point. His last start, he had a complete game shutout with 8 strikeouts. He had 25 strikeouts in 3 starts earlier this month in 3 consecutive starts. He had, I believe it was two games with 8 strikeouts and a game with 9 strikeouts. Then he can throw a gem pretty much any time because of that stuff. He has very good fastball. He uses his changeup well against righties. And he has a pretty good breaking pitch that he uses in the beginning and end of counts, which can get strikeouts. But if he's off, and that's one reason why I can't use him in cash, it's tough to be off in Fenway because with that wall on left to giving up extra base hits and that short porch down the right field line, it's tough to get out of a lot of fly balls. So in that park, I'm only going to be using him in GPPs tonight, but he has that upside to strike out a lot of hitters and go deep into the game. So he's probably my top tournament option tonight if you're playing in these big tournaments on DraftKings, on FanDuel, or even on Fantasy Aces and other sites. The last guy I wanted to mention is one of the only players that I like to say is just a cash option, not a GPP option. What I mean by that is Lackey is one of the few pitchers that doesn't strike out a lot of guys but goes deep into the game. Now, that's not a bad thing for cash because we like guys that are consistent. We like guys that aren't going to get shelled. And that's what Lackey's been doing pretty much his whole career. This year, 9 of his last 10 starts, he has at least or at fewest 3 earned runs. So at least 3 earned runs, rather. One of the things about that is we have a guy that goes 6 or 7 innings and allows 3 earned runs or less. It's called a quality start for those baseball statistic guys out there. But that allows you to get the win, which he's favored in. He has 9 wins already this year. And on FanDuel, that's big because that 4 points is huge. And that pretty much kind of nullifies the fact that he doesn't strike out a lot of hitters, which is why I like him in cash. Now, on DraftKings, the win doesn't mean as much, but it is 4 points, and it is what you need. So you have a guy that goes 6 or 7 innings, which is a guy like Lackey, and he faces the Reds today who aren't very good against right-handed pitching. It's a guy that you can use as a safety blanket, and at that price, it's worth paying up for because you know you're not going to get shelled, except for when he got shelled in Coors. But there's not many times we're starting a pitcher in Coors, so that doesn't matter. But the rest of his 9 of his last 10 starts, he's allowed 3 earned runs or less and 8 earned runs or less in 7 of those 10 starts. So he's been very good, been very consistent, and even though he doesn't get those strikeouts, he's a nice option for cash games. Those are my thoughts on pitching for today. There is just 9 games, so there aren't many options to look at, especially with Kershaw getting scratched. But be sure to monitor the RotoCurve lineups page, which will all these lineups are starting to come out in the next hour or two, so take a look at that. If the Angels don't have Trout, I would not mind going after Lance McCullers in cash, but if he's in there, it changes things a little bit because it adds another dimension to that offense. And also keep an eye out for Danielle's weather alerts, which will be up later on the site. So be sure to look at all that, all the rest of the tools. Everything's been updated. The new daily favorable matchups are updated. The bomb detector is updated. And there's some other tools available on the forums with links posted all across the site as well. So be sure to use everything to your advantage. And as always, let's win some money tonight. Good luck, everybody.